18th, 2024. We traditionally start our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would all rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, some housekeeping issues. The Planning Board voluntarily continues to offer remote participation. If any member of the Planning Board participates remotely, votes shall be by roll call. For folks who would like to attend this meeting via electronic means, you may either use a computer or a smart device like your smartphone. You go to www.zoom.us. The meeting ID is 754-663-912. If you want to join by telephone, the phone number is 646-558-8656, and the meeting ID is the same, 754-663-912. If you have problems getting in, please call 603-845-5585. If you are on the phone and you wish to raise your hand to be recognized, hit the *9. And then once you've been recognized, hit *6 to unmute yourself. I will now introduce the members and staff who are present tonight. To my very far right is alternate Mr. Mousy, alternate Ms. Lavoie, our planning director, Ms. Robidoux.
Good evening.
Our planning clerk, Ms. Cavallo. Town Administrative Representative, Mr. Chase.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Healy.
Good evening.
Town Council Liaison, Mr. Grenice.
Good evening.
Vice Chair, Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening.
To my far left is the Community Access Media Coordinator, Mr. Preventure. Town Engineer, Mark LaRue. Member, Mr. Fishman.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Feinauer.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Meyer. Good evening. And Secretary, Mr. Malaby.
Hello.
I'm Dave Nelson, I'm the chair. We do not have any escrow before us this evening. So the first item would be approval of minutes of December 4, 2024. There was one change noted in red in the version in your packet, so it is to be approved as amended. Is there any other errors or omissions?
Mr. Chair, seeing nobody coming forward, then I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to accept the minutes as amended. We'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer? Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Correspondence this evening?
It is a Christmas miracle. We have 3 pieces of correspondence, which I'll touch on quickly. The first, which is actually in, I believe, everybody's packet, is the staff report by Ms. Robidoux to the zoning board, just going over our discussion last meeting about Rockingham Cycle. There's also a flyer for our for all 3 mini charrettes we're going to be putting on for the Gateway District. The first one's going to be on Monday, January 6, 2025. Brian, Dan, Liz, and everyone else has done terrific work putting all that together. And then we have a letter from the Business and Economic Affairs Department, which I believe is not actually an approval of the grant. There we go, a lovely award. But this is just it's an approval to apply for the grant, correct?
No, we received the grant.
Oh, how good is that?
I can cover it over during updates.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I will ask the Gateway Committee to elaborate on the upcoming charrettes under chairman updates as well. Thank you, Mr. Malaby. In other business, we have a second extension request for parcel ID 08017, 37 Scobie Pond Road, and parcel ID 08017-001, 41 Ashley Drive.
So this is for the two industrial commercial developments at the top of Ashley, the extended Ashley Drive. At this time, the applicant is waiting for the AOT permit. The state was hoping to issue that by June, or the very beginning of January, but the applicant was afraid that their approval would lapse before they could get the ARM payment settled. So once the ARM payment is settled, they can issue the AOT, and the plans are ready to be signed.
Okay, any questions on that? Not, what's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve an additional 6-month extension of the conditional approvals granted on January 3rd, 2024 to PID 08017, 37 Scobie Pond Road subdivision, into PID 08017-001, 37 Scobie Pond Road site plan, AKA 41 Ashley Drive. The new expiration dates will be June 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Moved by Grenier, seconded by Malaby to grant the 6-month extension. We'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenier?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
I'm going to abstain, but I'm also in favor of this. I am a direct abutter to these properties.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Now we have planning director and chairman updates.
Okay. So I am very pleased to say that the town of Derry was one of 18 recipients of the Housing Champions designation by Business and Economic Affairs at the state. Thank you, the board members who went out of their way to scramble and make sure that we could get those extra points for the training. I truly appreciate your efforts. We needed 80 points to apply, and we were awarded 97 points. So we did a really good job on the application. So Mike Fowler and Dave Karen were tremendous help in pulling the application together and helping me get it to the state on time. Being awarded a housing champion gives the town access to $1.5 million worth of housing production grants and $3.5 million for infrastructure improvements. So this is a pool of money that we would not otherwise have access to, and where there's only 18 other municipalities in the state who have access to it, then we have a better chance of receiving some of that funding, which we don't have to raise through taxes, which is really good. Councilor Granessi and Councilor Foote and Dave Karen and Bev Donovan and I all went to BEA today to get this beautiful, wonderful plaque that we're gonna. Yay! So, I just want to say thank you again for all of your efforts. I really appreciate the help in getting this through. This is the first time I had done a grant application of that scope, and so I really do appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, and congratulations to
Thank
everyone
you.
involved.
Yeah.
And after chairman updates, we still have one vacancy for an alternate on the board. For those who think we're having a good time here or would just like to serve their community, please go to the Town of Derry website where you may find a page to volunteer for boards and committees and fill that out. I would like to yield the rest of my time to the Gateway Rezoning Committee for an elaboration on their upcoming charrettes.
Okay. So our next committee meeting is going to be December 27th at 2 p.m. We've been meeting at 12 p.m., so it's a different time for that meeting. As noted earlier, we have 3 upcoming sessions, January 6th, February 10th, and February 24th, starting at 7 p.m. here in this room. And each one is going to focus on a different area. So with the map, there's different areas of the project that we're looking for public input. So I guess any members of the public that are interested, you want to look at that map and make sure you're coming to the right meeting. And then I think there's going to be a meeting at the end of all of this as well. to go over everything.
Okay, thank you very much. Good work, all the members of the committee. Appreciate that. Next, we have a public hearing for Glenn P. Corbett, parcel ID 17002, 343 Island Pond Road, acceptance and review of a two-lot subdivision.
So the application before the board is for a two-lot subdivision of 343 Island Pond Road, which is in the low-density residential district. That district has a minimum of 3 acres per lot and 200 feet of frontage. The parent lot consists of 2.99 acres. The proposed plan presents lots that do not meet the required minimum, but the ZBA did grant a variance to allow less than the required lot area in April of this year. You have the decision in the minutes in your packet. This lot is surrounded by residential use. During the ZBA discussions, concerns were raised that one of the former owners had buried product on the site. We do have a copy of a release letter from DES, and that's also included in your files. So that concern is no longer thing we need to worry about. During TRC, committee members raised concerns about the following, which have all been addressed: driveway length and construction, compliance with town ordinances, drainage, site distance, and fire protection. The Conservation Commission declined review of the plan, but did ask that the approval ensure the wetland buffer remains intact, which on the plan it does. A note's been added to the plan with regard to the source of fire protection. DPW has requested that the applicant modify the grading for the driveway culverts. As it is shown on the plan right now, there are no swales to flow in either direction. And this has been added as a condition of approval. On the plan itself, there was a conflict in dates with the CWS notes and stamp, so that's for the wetland scientist. This should be clarified on the final plan set, and that's also a suggested condition of approval for the board. New Hampshire DOT driveway and subdivision and DES subdivision have been obtained, and we'd recommend that you review the plan for completeness, regional impact, and vote to approve it.
Thank you, Ms. Robidoux. On the matter of completeness, what is the board's pleasure on accepting jurisdiction?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept jurisdiction of the two-lot subdivision before the board for Glenn Corbett, PID 17002, 343 Island Pond Road.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malmy to accept jurisdiction. I'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fisherman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And on the determination of regional impact, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, pursuant to RSA 36:56, the board finds the proposal as presented at this time meets the definition of a development of regional impact.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malamy. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
No, this is a small two-lot subdivision and does not meet the requirements of a regional impact.
Mr. Healy?
No, for the same reasons as Mr. Chase.
Mr. Grenice?
No, for the same reasons.
Mr. O'Connor?
I would agree with my fellow men.
Mr. Fisherman?
No regional impact.
Mr. Feinauer?
No regional impact.
Mr. Myers?
No, same reason.
Mr. Malamy?
No, for the same reasons.
And I agree, no regional impact for the same reasons. At this point, can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
You're going to open the public hearing, or have them speak first?
Well, we open the public hearing and then
All right,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
moved by Mr. O'Connor, moved by, seconded by Malamy to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Excuse me, the public hearing is open. We would invite you to give us an overview of your application.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing Mr. Glenn Corbett, who's with us tonight, who's the owner of the property. The property is located at 343 Island Pond Road. It is a 2.99 acre parcel, almost 3 acres. The proposal would be to split it directly in two, each lot having 1.49. As was stated, this subdivision enjoys a a ZBA variance that was granted to Mr. Corbett on April 18th of this year to have the undersized lots. The lots are, in this zone, are supposed to have 65,000 square feet. These have, I'm sorry, these lots have 65,000, which is under the 3 acres that's required. We have presented a plan and gone through TRC with regards to the proposal. They are 2 single-family homes. The driveways are less than 150 feet long. We've provided driveway profiles showing the adherence to the Derry requirements for slope of the driveways. Each driveway will have a culvert underneath to keep water flowing from north to south. As was mentioned, there is a little bit of additional swaling to do to the south to make sure that flow happens in that manner. Soil testing has been done on site to find suitable soils for on-site septic systems. Those septic systems have been designed and they're waiting approval of the subdivision before we submit those to DES for approval. They will be gravity systems located behind the houses. There also is ample area for a well on each lot, and a 75-foot protective radius is totally contained within each independent lot. We have secured New Hampshire DOT driveway access permits for the 2 driveways, and that's in your package, as well as New Hampshire DES subdivision approval for the subdivision itself. We have on the next sheet, we have provided the driveway profiles and also the site distance profiles for each of the driveways coming out onto Island Pond Road, demonstrating sufficient site distance in both directions. So we would ask the board to look favorably upon the subdivision and approve it as submitted with the additional condition that was mentioned.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, is there anyone present in the room, in the public, who would like to ask questions or make comments on this plan? Seeing none, is there anyone online, Mr. Preventure? Seeing none rise at this time. Okay. Any questions from members of the board? Mr. Healy?
My question's not so much on the plan, it's this letter from New Hampshire DES. And I read the report from 2002 with all the violations and all the hazardous material that was dumped there. I think at one point it said 65 truckloads of stuff was brought to that property. Do we have anything else from DES? Because it says based on DES's determination. Do we know what DES did? Because this letter now was 9 years after that 2002 violation on that property. So I'd say my only concern is not really with the plan, it's just if there's any hazardous material there and what's actually been done or how they determined that now that property is in compliance.
So I would point out that the majority of the, as it says in this letter, I think where the material was being deposited, that was actually on the BR10 slot, which is now the Steel Road development, where all those new homes are. And at the time, I believe that there was question that, some of it from that deposit had also ended up on this lot. And I believe DES is saying that this lot is okay, like they're not looking for any further action on this lot.
So when they start
that other one's already developed.
So when they start to develop, they shouldn't really run into any issues. It was further back.
Yeah, it was behind, the lots behind.
That
off
was
of
really my
Broadway.
only concern looking at this, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else have comments or questions? Okay. I'm sorry?
What about Mr. LaRue? Does he have any
I don't know, if Mr. Nichols has questions, he can raise his hand. Your mic on? Okay. Use your outdoor voice.
If you look at the elevations, it shows that it's basically flat all the way up front. The inverts or outlets don't really drain anywhere. They just have to create a positive pitch from the north to the south and then extend the swale from the second driveway to the south to make sure it drains properly.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? If not, then can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malby to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Public hearing is closed. There are no waivers to consider, according to this document. So we move on to findings of fact.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, a comment has to be made prior to reading the finding of the fact. On April 18th, 2024, the ZBA granted a variance, and it's needed to have the parcels to be split into two. So therefore, Mr. Chair, the board finds the proposed plan provides safe and efficient vehicle and pedestrian access, and the design and construction of the driveways are adequate to accommodate the anticipated volume of traffic proposed by the development. The board finds the stormwater management as proposed is designed to control the post-development runoff so that it does not exceed pre-development runoff. So we move to agree with the above-noted findings of fact.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby, and we'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. And now on to the conditional approval.
Mr. Chair, after review and deliberation of the two-lot subdivision application for Glen Corbett, PID 17002, 343 Island Pond Road, the board finds the applicant has satisfied the general requirements of the land development control regulations. Therefore, the motion is to approve pursuant to RSA 676:4, Roman numeral 3, expedited review with the following conditions. Subject to the owner's signature, subject to on-site inspection by the town engineer, establish escrow for the setting of bounds, or certified the bounds have been set, establish appropriate escrow as required to complete the project, obtain written approval from the planning director or designee that the GIS submission is received and is in compliance with LDCR Section 170-24C. Mylar must meet RCRD recording requirements, add the state subdivision approval number and the New Hampshire DOT driveway approval number to the notes on sheet 5, add the invasive note to sheet 1. Dairy Conservation Commission urges the applicant to mitigate the invasive vegetation on the parcel using appropriate control measures pursuant to state rules and guidance. All professional stamps and certifications are provided on the final plan. Move the planning board signature block to the lower right-hand corner on sheet 5. Confirm the date Luke Hurley performed the wetland survey as the plan noted in the stamp conflict. Modify the grading for the driveway culverts as there are no swales for water to flow in either direction. Conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months. Submission of the appropriate recording fees payable to the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. This also includes the $25 L-chip fee, recording fees for the Mylar, and the notice of decision.
Second.
So,
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby. Is any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing to amend the Town of Derry zoning ordinance, Section 165-5 definitions, Section 165-125 appeals, Section 165-128 motion for a rehearing, Section 165-35 office medical business district, Section 165-25 accessory dwelling units, Section 165-34 office business district, Section 165-50 independent adult overlay.
Okay. So in 2024, the state legislature voted in amendments to several RSAs that relate to land use. Some of those are already in effect, and they supersede our town zoning ordinance and regulations. In October, the board reviewed the changes and moved forward with a workshop to discuss them and what needed to be incorporated into the town ordinance. And so with HB 1359, the state definition of a butter was amended to clarify the current definition. It also narrows who can file for an appeal of an administrative decision with the ZBA. That legislative change went into effect in September of this year. Proposed revisions to the zoning ordinance have been prepared, and we're proposing amendments at Section 165-5 definitions to amend the definition of a butter, and 165-125 appeals, 165-128 motion for rehearing. Relative to HB 1400, the state revised parking minimums required for residential parking. That change will go into effect on January 1st. The majority of those changes will be in the LDCR amendments we'll discuss later. For the zoning ordinance, we're suggesting changes relative to the additional parking requirement for creations of ADUs. Currently, we say you need 4 spaces for an ADU. We would like to amend that to 1 additional parking space for the addition of an ADU. That is at Section 165-25. We've also added language to clarify that the ADU needs to meet the appropriate setbacks, because we thought this was an appropriate time to clear that up. There's also an amendment proposed in the OBD zone under Section 165-34, referring any parking requirements to the LDCR. We took the opportunity to, wherever we found those types of changes, to incorporate those. Outside of the legislative required changes, the board has discussed adding a definition for Asian bodywork therapist, reflexologists, and structural integrators. That definition matches the state definition. The use is proposed to be allowed in the office medical business district only, and therefore amendments are proposed in 165-5 definitions and 165-35 office medical business district. So the recommendation would be to review the proposed amendments, accept them, and refer them to Town Council for approval.
All right, at this point, I would like to have a motion to open a public hearing.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Public hearing is open. Any member of the public who has comments or questions about the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance as recently described, welcome to come forward and ask questions or make comments. Seeing no one in the room, Mr. Preventure, is there anyone online? Seeing none rise online. Who wants to make the motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Kate, moved by O'Connor, seconded by Mallaby to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Any questions or comments from members of the board? On the approval and of the proposed amendments and the motion to forward them to the Town Council for review, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, seeing nobody raise their hand, then I will move to approve the proposed amendments to the Town of Derry Land Development Control Regulation.
Nope. Zoning ordinance. What? On the wrong page.
Where is that?
It's in a different packet.
Mr. Chairman, apologize. Move to accept the proposed amendments to the Town of Derry zoning ordinance and move them forward to the Town Council for review and recommended approval.
Second.
the Town of Derry zoning ordinance, Article 2, word uses and definitions, Section 165-5, definitions. Article 3, general provisions, Section 165-25, accessory dwelling units. Article 6, district provisions, Section 165-34, office business district, and Section 165-35, office medical business direct. Article 11, zoning board of adjustment, Section 165-125, appeals, and Section 165-128, motion for a rehearing. Also, finally, Article 19, thank you, independent adult community overlay district, Section 165-150, independent overlay, adult overlay.
Okay, moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malby to approve and forward to the town council. I will now poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Excuse me, Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Bernice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
I found my other one.
We now move on to our next public hearing, which is to amend the Town of Derry Land Development Control Regulations, Section 170-63, parking requirements, add new sections 170-5.1, Technical Review Committee, and new section 170-5.2, outside engineering review, amend section 170-17, fees and costs, section 170-24, final application phase submittals, section 170-56, fees and costs, section 170-61, final application phase submittals, and section 170-19, general provisions.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, I move to, whoops.
Let Liz give her
Yeah.
staff report, please.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, and this one's just a little bit longer, but I'll try and make it quick. So following along with the legislative updates to the RSA, the board looked at the appropriate proposed amendments in the land development control regulations. Relative to HB 1400, as noted before, parking minimums were revised for residential parking. On the site plan side, that included two provisions. The first one was accessory parking for vehicles could be regulated with certain limitations. The town cannot require more than 1.5 residential parking spaces per unit for studios and one-bedroom apartments that are under 1,000 square feet if those units meet the requirements for workforce housing under RSA 674-58-4. And we can no longer require more than 1.5 residential parking spaces for units in developments of 10 units or more. If a proposed provision number 2 said if the proposed residential use meets the on-site parking requirements in our local ordinance with an alternative parking solution because of economic constraints, the board has to consider that alternative, and if the applicant can prove that their alternative works, the board needs to accept it. So in other words, if they don't have enough space on site and they have a parking agreement with another lot, private lot that can accommodate the parking, that's something that we would need to consider. So to go along with these changes, we're proposing amendments to the LDCR at section 170-63. So it will align our parking regulations with the new requirements per the RSA and clean up our requirement for independent adult housing developments. We are removing the term elderly housing and replacing that with independent adult. The board also took this opportunity to outline the process and expectations for the Technical Review Committee, which is a policy and procedure that's been in place for a very long time. The new language outlines the purpose of TRC, who's on the committee, when review is required, and the procedure. Changes have also been added to the plan submittal checklists for subdivision and site plans to clarify how the TRC members sign off on the proposed applications. And to go along with that, we've added the application fee for TRC, which has already been approved by town council. It was just not iterated in our regulation. And so that has been added. We're also clarifying how digital submissions are formatted to be more in line with current technology. Right now, our regulations say you can submit it on a CD. I don't think we even have CD readers. So we're also proposing a change to LDCR Section 17019, which speaks to the deadline for planning board applications. Right now, the RSA says you can have 21 days to submit an application. It was changed to allow towns that had staff and the capability to decrease that submittal deadline down to 14 days, which is what Derry follows. So we are updating that language in our LDCR. The last change is to add a new section for outside review engineering. Currently, we contract with 2 outside firms to perform peer review of major subdivisions and site plans. In this new section, we'll detail the purpose of hiring an outside consultant, how the fees are funded, and what type of plan is reviewed, and how those payments are processed. So the recommendation this evening would be to review the proposed amendments and approve them. And I would note that any changes to the LDCR fall under the purview of the planning board only. So if approved, those changes would become effective immediately.
Thank you. May I have
Thank
a motion to open the public hearing?
I so move.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Public hearing is open. Anyone in the room or remote online who has questions or comments regarding these amendments to the land development control regulations, public hearing is open to hear your comments. I see no one in the room. Do we have anyone online, Mr. Preventure? Seeing none rise, then.
Mr. Chair, I so move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay. Public hearing is closed. And on the approval of the amendments to the LDCR.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the proposed amendments to the Town of Derry Land Development Control Regulations and have the changes effective immediately. Town of Derry Land Development Control Regulations. First, Article 1, Use and Construction. Add new section 170-5.1, Technical Review Committee, and new section 170-51.2, Outside Engineering Review.
No, that's actually just 5.2.
Oh, yeah,
That's a typo.
it is. Yep,
So you got that?
I do, yep. So it should be, the second part should be add new section 170-5.2.
For Outside Engineering Review,
Thank you.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, Article 3, Application and Approval Procedures, Section 170-17, Fees and Cost. Article 4, Application and Submittal Requirements, Section 170-19, General Provisions, and Section 170-24, Final Application Phase Submittals. And lastly, Article 9, Application and Approval Procedures, Section 170-56, Fees and Cost, Section 170-61, Final Application Phase Submittals, and Section 170-63, Parking Requirements.
Second.
It's been moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to approve the amendments to the LDCR. We'll poll the board. Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Fishman.
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer. Yes. Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you to the staff and members for working through this set of amendments to keep us on the good side of the state law. We now come to board member comments. Does anyone have any comments, clever stories? Mr.
Thanks,
Goodies?
Mr. Chairman. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year, however you celebrate it. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Very
We
good.
shall, and same to all
I'll
the
second
members
that.
of the board. That's all we have, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.